I'm talking about the ever mercurial Seun Oni. Hello, Seun. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Brian. Thank you for having me this morning, sir.
It's always a pleasure, but on quite the dramatic note and with the tussle of power in Lagos Assembly, I don't know what you make of it. We've looked at the headline stories, but as far as those go, it's on the allegations that have also greeted this development. Some are pointing accusing fingers in the direction of Mr. President himself. Whilst the DSS is looking to refute this, saying they were invited by the clerk of the House, tell us, do you have any insights as to some of the secrets involved in this development?
It's a sad one, and whenever incidences as this happen, it just reminds us of the grimy days of the military. We are no longer in a military dictatorship era. We are now in a democracy. So it's frightening, it's sad, it's unfortunate that we experience this type of a situation, a siege on the Lagos State House of Assembly. I think it's a blight on our democracy. But speaking about insight about what actually transpired yesterday in Lagos, I think is very clear. What metamorphosed into this crisis was the removal of the former Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, who had been at the helm of affairs for almost 10 years. And that itself is record-breaking. But the way and manner he was ousted, initially fingers were pointed at his not too rosy relationship with the governor, which eventually got to the ears of the governing council, which is the highest decision-making organ of the party in Lagos State, that Mr. President himself, of course, was tacitly the leader of that governing council because it was his idea. He was ousted in a manner while he was still in the United States of America. Miranda was sworn in. But since then, Obasa has never left anyone in doubt whether he wanted to return back as the Speaker, even though majority, if not all, members of the Lagos State House of Assembly had made it very clear that they don't want him again. That again tells you the nature of our democracy as a people. If members of the House of Assembly were quite unambiguous that they don't want someone to be their leader again, this type of drama that we are seeing, I think is needless. That's on one side.
Yeah.
How does the president comes in here? Everyone knows that the DSS takes orders when it comes to issues as this from the highest level. The president is not in the country, but don't forget that the chief of staff, who is a major person in the presidency, is also from Lagos State. We have seen two conflicting letters. The DSS says the acting clerk invited them to protect that place. But we have seen another letter authored by the spokesperson of Lagos State House of Assembly.
But Mr. Seun Oni, the statement made by the DSS that they were invited to protect the House of Assembly, we would want to know, protection from what exactly? What is it that the acting clerk feared enough to have called the DSS to invade a sacred house as revered as the Lagos State House of Assembly?
Mr. Chijoke, that's actually where I'm going to.
Okay.
The spokesperson of the Lagos State House of Assembly authored the letter, signed the letter yesterday to counter what the DSS actually said, inviting DSS to provide men to protect the House of Assembly is actually routine from what he said. That is routine. And that was not the first time that type of a request will be sent to the DSS. that usually when that type of a request is made to the DSS, their personnel are usually stationed at the entrance of Lagos State House of Assembly and within the perimeter of Lagos State House of Assembly. What was very, will I say, what was wrong with the deployment yesterday was that we saw DSS operatives struggling with members of Lagos State House of Assembly to have access into their chambers with their AK-47. The video was everywhere.
Now,
So
we also learned that the officers of the DSS had locked off the office of the now Speaker of the House of Assembly,
and the office of the deputy as well.
and the office of the deputy as well, denied them access to their offices, and also denied certain key House of Assembly members from gaining access to the floor of the House for yesterday's plenary. Why do you think all of these things happened?
Yes, that's exactly the point I was trying to make. That was the very frightening dimension that DSS actually added to its routine operation at the floor at the Lagos State House of Assembly complex. The office of the Speaker was locked, the Deputy Speaker, and that of the person who invited them to come and protect the Assembly, the acting clerk's office, was also locked under the premise that they learned that Obasa would be mobilizing his people to come and resume. I need to add also that there was a report around, I think, about Thursday last week, and I think our people also did also carry that news, that it was officially a month that Obasa had not stepped foot into Lagos State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
I have no doubt it was that news, because constitutionally there is a number of days that if you don't come for sitting, it's assumed that you will lose your seat. So I think that was one of the things that precipitated what you were saying. So when they learned that he might come, I think there was that fear he might come with a show of force. And that was why the acting clerk wrote to them. But the DSS, we need to clarify why we went to that length. But how I was trying to also add the dimension of the president. What brought Mr. President into all of this narrative? Number one, Lagos State is a state. Number two, the Austin of Obasa had all the footprint of the president, because we knew he was on holiday during the December Yuletide when he openly confronted Obasa about his larger-than-life demeanor and posture, especially to the governor of the state. And we learned that he actually told them that he never expected that from him. It was from that statement.
Obasa also declared that he is also fit to run for presidency. In reply to that, just to buttress your point, because I also gathered that he told the Lagos State governor and the president that he is also more than capable in terms of his ambitions and aspirations to emerge as the president. But whilst this is so, do you think that this idea we have of the independence of the three arms of government, while they need to work together, is gradually fizzling out? Over time, they refer to the assembly at the national level as rubber stamp. The state assembly has also been said to be under the arm of the governor. But is this setting a precedence whereby the ideas that we have, that these arms need to be autonomous and independent in their decision making, especially when it comes to a change of leadership? Because your newspaper is also saying that 36 of the lawmakers have passed a vote of confidence on Miranda. How does this shape the future when we talk about the legislative arm of government at the state level?
How does it shape the future? I want to also say that Obasa, it was not a hidden thing. It was on the budget presentation that Obasa made it very clear that he was also fit, he was more than qualified, to quote him, to also vie for the office of the governor of Lagos State, that he was more qualified than anyone having served in the House of Assembly for the number of years and having also presided as Speaker the longest in the annals of the state, if I may be fact-checked, in the country. But having said that, everyone knows that the houses of assembly, and it's not just about Lagos, the houses of assembly across the 36 states of the Federation are actually under the hijack. They are working under a very strenuous condition, under the hijack of the governors of the various states. This is an open secret. It's known to everyone. The problem did not really start from the sitting. Many people usually think the problem usually begins when a new speaker is sworn in. No. The problem usually begins when candidates for elective positions are actually
declaring interest,
appointed or nominated during primaries. Most, if not all, of the candidates are usually there under the choice and the overtures of the governors. I mean, every state. For instance, if I give you the example of my state, Ekiti State, it's almost a constant that if you are a member of the party of the incumbent governor, you have a clean slate to win an election in Ekiti State. It's a constant. Apart from the 1999 experiment, 1999 to 2003, elections since 2003 in Ekiti State have shown that whoever is the governor will sweep the houses of assembly, the House of Rep, and the senatorial seat. It's been like that. So that means if the governor gives you the slot to represent your people, if you are there, you definitely do his bidding.
Yeah, carry on, Mr. Seun, before I ask my next question.
So I will simply say that this idea of there is no separation of power, we must throw back the court into the ball into the courts of the electorate. If we want a change in the House of Assembly, we now begin to take seriously who wins election. If the governor can just name someone from the state capital and the various constituencies are sent to it, that means we like it as a people. Until people begin to ensure that it is only people who will represent them and not represent the whims and caprices of Mr. Governor that they are voting for, we will continue to see this across the various states of the Federation.
Well, Mr. Seun Oni, let's go back to the Lagos State House of Assembly crisis yesterday. We saw the drama that had unfolded, and we also saw a situation that many people had interpreted quite in different ways, where, after the Speaker of the House had gained access to the floor of the House for plenary, talking about Mojisola Miranda, she was seen visibly shedding tears, while other members of the House were, chanting solidarity songs for her. A lot of people had interpreted that as either Miranda just shedding crocodile tears, while others said that it had shown a sign of weakness. What exactly do you think that particular act had conveyed? What message did she convey by shedding those tears at the House or the floor of the House yesterday?
Actually, I must admit that I'm not a good psychologist. I'm not good with reading body language.
Yeah.
But if any one of us were to be in Right Honorable Miranda's shoe, you will know that the events of yesterday were quite overwhelming. I think I can say that much, that the event was quite overwhelming.
Especially with the use of force, the AK-47s that were there. We understand that.
Yes, it was quite overwhelming.
But let's get, so that we don't dwell on this issue much, let's get to another very serious issue. Now, the challenges with the quest for local government autonomy, the Supreme Court, in its verdict, has granted it in technicality The bureaucracy stalling the opening of direct accounts by local government chairmen is also another issue. But the pertinent issue now is in Osun State. We've seen quite the contrast in party positions on what happened yesterday. It's quite sad that lives have been lost while we have this conversation. We would extend our condolences to the families of those who lost their lives. But the challenge now is on what it portends for local government autonomy, especially when an appeal court has passed a verdict, and then we see this scuffle between ex-council chairmen, those who are supposed to be taking over the helm of office from them. And it's back to the square one debates on, are we really ready for local government autonomy?
If you ask me, I think it's a shame. A shame on us as a country, a shame on us that after this number of years practicing democracy, basic tenets of democracy we still don't want to uphold. And I'm saying this because it is not the party at the center that is in the center of this charade. I'm also saying this because it tells you something is fundamentally wrong with our security architecture. First, the issue became a subject of litigation because the APC government lost to PDP government. And the first thing the PDP government did was to tell them to leave office. So the Federal High Court decision favored the PDP. And those folks sat at home. Now the appeal court decision did not favor them. And suddenly, all hell was let loose. As I speak to you today, from the account, at least 7 people have lost their life, needlessly. So how on earth will you insist that the decision of court, the appeal court, after you have gone through the whole hall, the appeal court now gave a declarative judgment that they have to complete their terms in office. And you want to now bring in, you want to rig in the president because the former governor was his cousin or his nephew because they are in the same political party, and we want to start bringing precedents. And we have this penchant as a nation when we don't like individuals.
Yeah.
Even when actions that is blatantly unconstitutional is done against them, we turn the other eyes. And I think that alone tells us the level of hypocrisy we have as a people. And that's why people we have voted in can just do the things they do and they get away with it.
Let's talk about people who have not voted in. And let's talk about people who have not voted in, because we saw the cousin to the governor, prominent for his exploits in the music industry, David Adeleke, calling out the commissioner of police in Osun. He used quite unprintable words against him and says he would not stop because he believes that the commissioner of police is culpable in allowing the violence that ensued yesterday. You had also talked about some breaches in our security. Could that situation have been handled differently yesterday?
I did clearly, I did mention that we have a fundamental issue with our security architecture. The governor, as of Sunday, had alerted the security services, the intelligence community, that there was likely going to be a breakdown of law and order in the state. What did they do to prevent it? That's where our security architecture, that's where they got it all wrong. The man on Sunday had actually dead, and from what now happened on Monday, it was clear. And that has always been the stock in trade of our politicians. When election is close, for instance, they will mobilize thugs, arm them. They will now go to the press and say the opposition is mobilizing thugs. That has been their stock in trade. That's how they function. Because what happened yesterday was clearly, it was a clear showdown between the two dominant political parties.
But yet,
APC has force.
yet it appears that the APC is alleging that the People's Democratic Party is the one that had organized these talks to invade the council secretariats and cause this mayhem yesterday. Should we believe the APC, or should we believe that the PDP, that is somewhat not necessarily aggrieved in as much as APC, could go as far as organizing these talks to invade the council secretariats? It's shrouded in mystery. Please clarify on this, Mr. Seun.
We had our reporters in Osun. So, and we had people who are not even journalists, citizen journalists that we spoke to. What I am saying now, and I'm repeating it again, and I'm saying it authoritatively, that what happened on Sunday was the incumbent preempting what he planned doing. So it was not whether APC or PDP, it was the both sides. He knew APC talks will come and ensure that the councillors and chairmen have their way into the various council secretariats. And what they did on their own side, the PDP, was that they equally armed their own talks. So it was a free-for-all.
A show of political power and thuggery.
Now, Mr. Seun, in this instance, when there is visibly a breakdown relationship between a governor and his commissioner of police, now we're seeing calls to the IGP. Does this also worry you that we've been conversing on the need for state police? If at this moment we have federal police with the appointments of commissioners in states and there's a breakdown relationship between the CP and the governor visibly, what does this do for the future in conversation of security apparatus when it has to do with state policing?
Brian, you see, I thought about this while we were trying to write. I'm working on an editorial, and honestly, I really don't know where to situate this. And on the flip side, we saw an incumbent arming talks to disrupt something that was not in his favor yesterday. That means if he had access to state police, he would have instructed the state police to unleash mayhem on those people legally. What happened yesterday was illegal. He armed talk to attack talks who were coming to ensure that APC stalwart gain entrance to the party secretariat. Now on the flip side, let's assume that he is in control of state police and they were properly armed with their own AK-47 and the rest of them. He will simply instruct them to shoot APC people if they are coming to come and enforce an order of court. That is dangerous, and that's why the debate about state police is neither here nor there. The character and the posturing of our politicians in Nigeria clearly show that they are not ripe to handle state police.
Well, so these are incidences that will also judge the scorecard that we give to Nigeria's democracy, because when we look at it, we're talking about the fact that we've left the military rule. You started your comments on the program this morning by saying the days of military rule are far beyond us, but it may seem as though those in elected positions like to rely on those with arms to somewhat subvert lawful processes. In setting the precedents, how does the court or the judiciary remedify this situation? We see human rights rewards for those who have lost their lives. Is there any justice to be had in this issue in Osun?
Thank you, Brian, for that question. We saw how DSS in Lagos yesterday were on a legal duty. It is a constitutional matter and it's global best practice everywhere in the world that you don't go to the floor of a legislative chamber with arms. It's a global standard. The US, the UK, all the places where we went to copy their democracy. Nobody goes to the floor of a legislative armed. Nobody does that. But we saw DSS fighting yesterday to enter Lagos State House of Assembly floor with the AK-47. Why not deploy those men? When the governor already told you on Sunday that there will be likely breakdown of law and order. Like I told you, intuitively, he already knew what he planned. And he knew that APC guys will not come with Bible and Quran to ensure that their chieftains enter the secretariat. They will come with guns and machetes and the rest of the things we saw in Osun yesterday, flying freely. You expect the security architecture to counter them by ensuring that the hooded DSS that we are struggling to gain entrance to the floor of Lagos State yesterday have been stationed across all the local government headquarters. We have mopos, we have police. If those guys were there yesterday, that would become a deterrent to armed cops because they can't be as armed as these trained folks.
But Mr. Seun, I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand why it appears that you are throwing a major bulk of the blame on Governor Adeleke of Osun State. The APC had talks alongside the outside local government council chairman and other councillors as well, who had, gone to the secretariats, and it is only expected that stalwarts of the People's Democratic Party would also want to show, want to express a show of force in this situation. So I do not really think that the governor, having given an executive order perhaps to the Commissioner of Police to ensure decorum and law and order across all the secretariats, should be bearing this large brunt of the blame that you're throwing at him. Is that just and fair?
No, Chijoke, I think you did not get my my submission. What I've said now, the major brunt of the blame goes to our security architecture. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What happened in Osun yesterday was not APC or PDP alone. It was the both sides. I've been stressing that. The PDP, of course, Governor Adeleke being the governor, is the leader of the party in the state.
Certainly.
So the statement he made on Sunday, my people in Yoruba people will say, the witch screamed yesterday, the baby died today. Then you just need to connect the dots. Who killed the baby? On Sunday, a governor came out and told us that we break down law and order. The following day was a Monday. Talks on the two sides, APC, PDP. We are waiting guns, waiting machetes, killed about 7 persons. Several people have been injured and hospitalized. Government properties are going into millions have been vandalized across the state. And we did not see security presence to weigh that off. That's my point. So you can go and blame governor and blame APC, but we had a security that had been forewarned that there was likely going to be a breakdown of law and order. What did they do to prevent it? That's my submission.
I also saw a recent tweet or post yesterday from the same David Adeleke, who had, said unprintable things towards the Commissioner of Police in the state, where he, sort of swallowed his words, citing that following further investigations that he had found out that the Commissioner of Police was on top of the game yesterday, on top of his game to ensure
I'm guessing damage control.
Damage control certainly. So he sort of reverted on some of the statements he had earlier made, and then also in the same line thanked the Commissioner of Police for all the efforts he had made towards ensuring that law and order is restored to the state. Do you still think that the security apparatus in the state did not do well enough to ensure that peace and decorum was restored in Osun State, and that perhaps if they had not done what they did, the death toll could have been higher than these 7 or 8 figures that we are seeing?
We must not create the impression that one life is not bad enough. So when we are now talking about 7 lives already confirmed lost, how many more lives do we want? In simply local government is voted, democratically elected local government officials, having received judgment of court, want to go and resume duty in the secretariat. And we already had 7 people losing their lives. I think there's no way we can justify this and say they are on top of their game or they tried. No, there is no trial here. They failed the people. The families who have lost their loved one won't be talking about whether they tried or it would have been worse. No, it was a terrible thing on the part of our security architecture that I'm still insisting. The governor already told everyone about 6 p.m. on Sunday. The news was everywhere. And on Sunday, on Monday, the following day, we saw the level of mayhem that took place in Osun State yesterday. Something is seriously wrong. And I really don't want to talk about the video. They are in a different world. Most times, damage control is part of the things they do because they are in a world where they act before thinking. The initial tweet was just a spontaneous reaction that was not based on any fact, just taking side because your uncle was the governor of the state, and it was clear when all the chiefs were down, and it was very obvious that on a scale of violence, the side he was supporting actually did more mayhem from the report we've gotten now. So it was nothing to go and say the police are actually taking control because when you are in the heat, it's like what we see on every election cycle. During every election cycle, you see people come out. You see politicians, that is major actors in the election. Say, the news I'm hearing across the state, I'm still keeping my question there. INEC, they are the worst. INEC, they will say that around 10 a.m. But by 12 p.m., when the results are trickling and they are winning, the same people will say INEC is the best thing that ever happened after sliced bread. So those are the type of temperament we have in our political system. They just make statements without fact. So I wasn't surprised when I saw his tweet yesterday.
That's a relatable analogy of use. It's quite relatable. I believe most Nigerians watching this morning would agree with you. Let's look at 2 other issues making headline stories on some other newspapers before we say our goodbyes this morning. The next issue is on the Hajj Commission. Now, over time, the habit of sponsoring Nigerians on religious pilgrimage has been questioned, especially coming from the fact that taxpayers' monies are used. But this morning, it gets even more interesting following the activities of the Commission. A Saudi Arabian firm has given it 20 days to normalize what they've called a breach of contract or face a lawsuit at the International Arbitration Court. I don't know what you make of this issue again. We're going into another year. A lot of people will be applying to their state pilgrim boards to be able to sponsor them for religious pilgrimage. But even in contractors handling this pilgrimage, they're suing the Commission over this breach of contract. What would you say we are to expect going into the 2025 religious pilgrimage season?
I must say it up front that why those in the spotlight are Muslim this time around. I'm a Christian. I'm not just a Christian. I'm privileged. I'm a pastor of a church. I think government really has no business in sponsoring people to pilgrimage, whether to Mecca or to Jerusalem. Government has no business. It's just similar to the subsidy on fuel that we left until the economy was almost coming crashing on us, and we are now taking decision in a very dire manner. You can imagine if subsidy had been removed when President Goodluck, Ebele Jonathan attempted to do that. We would have weathered the storm, and the very deep and dire economic situation we are confronted with today, we would have avoided it. It's the same with pilgrimage. Why not just leave political office holders and appointees, ministers, governors, let them use their own money to sponsor them to Hajj, not budgeting for sponsoring of people to Hajj. I think for me, For instance, in Christianity, it's not a must. I learned also that in Islam, there is a caveat. If you can afford it, I don't think somebody that is on a sponsored Hajj by government is actually fulfilling that religious obligation. I'm not a Muslim, so I don't want to interpret the Quran for them. But I think in Christianity it's very clear that there's nothing compulsory. It doesn't determine whether you make heaven. It doesn't determine whether you're a good Christian or you're a bad one if you have never been to Jerusalem. For me, if I want to go to Jerusalem, I really want to go there for tourists, not for religious anything, because the little knowledge I know, there is nothing really religious as it were. It's more of a tourist visit. That might not be right for the people in Islam. But
right.
I think we shouldn't use our money to sponsor people on those kind of pilgrimage. Let them use their money, or let political office holders who can sponsor them use their own money and sponsor them instead of projecting on things like this. It's really a waste of our resources, honestly.
All right, duly noted. Now, in conclusion, one final question, and it's on the economy. Last year, the NBS was scrutinized by Nigerians over the methodology in which they used to publish the inflationary figures, also suggesting that they might be leaning towards the executive's decision of where it wants the economy to be. But statutorily, global CPIs are done every 5 years. The last one done in Nigeria was done in 2009. The NBS is statutorily empowered to publish these figures. But the figures were expected last week. It's been delayed. We're told to expect the NBS January reports today. But we also see experts, before the report drops officially, telling Nigerians that inflation would drop to 24.48%. It's currently at 34.8%. You remember Mr. President had promised, owing to the 2025 budget, that we should expect 15% by the end of the year. Following your market survey by your reporters, do you agree with the figures we're seeing? Is there actually a decline in inflation when you look at the prices of goods and the index in the market?
Thank you. We must be very careful on labeling institutions, especially institutions as NBS. And that was why I can't recollect when that was, but I think we had a conversation around this earlier this year, and one of the things I suggested was that there's really nothing wrong if states can also have their own state bureau of statistics. So that I think a state like Lagos is overdue for that. Bear in mind that Lagos economy, if you were to pull it out of Nigeria, Lagos economy would be like, I think, number 5 on the continent. So I think they are due to have that type of office where they can do their independent statistical analysis and come out with figures about inflation, unemployment, employment, purchasing power parity, and the rest of those other statistical figures. Having said that, the template that the National Bureau of Statistics that they deploy, I think you can Google, anybody who is doubting it can Google and just see that what they did was that they updated their template comparing themselves with other economies, because before now, there were services and things rendered that were not captured in the calculation of that index. And so they just say, oh, other nations usually factor this, and they put it in. And I think there's nothing wrong about that.
Mr. Seun, are you now citing that perhaps the calculations or the reports by the NBS are inaccurate? And you had also cited that Lagos is overdue for its own state Bureau of Statistics, which is quite pertinent. But how about other states that are not as economically viable as Lagos State or the Federal Capital Territory or even Port Harcourt in that sense? What happens to them? Do they also require a state Bureau of Statistics?
What I'm trying to say is I'm talking about states having a complementary statistical data, because all these laying blame on NBS is because there's an assumption, they are perhaps the only I'm speaking to this because that's an area I've tried investing. I started up a data analysis firm. We couldn't pull it up because of the sheer resources. Gate Push Limited, I actually pioneered it a few years ago, but the sheer resources required to take data across the country was huge. After operating, after a year, it was so difficult. We don't have that type of resources. So I'm saying a number of states will not be able to pull it off. But a state like Lagos has the wherewithal to do that. So that when Lagos, for instance, comes out and says its inflationary figure is 30%, and NBS data comes maybe a day before or days after and says it's 30.2, then you say, oh, now we can have another, but it's only NBS. So you always have this doubt whether they are being influenced by the executive to churn out certain data or not. That's the point I'm trying to make. And it's not a Nigeria issue. It's the same also. Anytime Fed in the US releases their data, you will always see critiques saying, are you sure the person who appointed the Fed chairman, the Federal Reserve chairman, is the president, is the Republican president, the Democratic president, maybe he's influencing figure. It's a global issue. But when you now have, maybe for instance, a private firm doing that, the person who tried that also sometimes ago was, I think it was Bismarck. I'm trying to remember the name of his firm. It was always projecting, releasing statistics before MBS. And you usually see there is very close similarity, even though when we study some of the things they did, we saw that it was still limited. Their methodology was a bit faulty compared to the ones that NBS used. So that's the point I'm making. I'm not saying the data cannot be relied on. I'm saying if we now have more than one sources churning out this type of data, then we can do a comparison. We'll now begin to ask ourselves, Lagos says its inflation rate is 30%, NBS says it's 27%. That's too wide. In statistics, we don't allow that. It should be plus or minus. We need a range of plus or minus, sometimes just 0.3, 0.7. So if we have 3, then someone will be wrong. It's either NBS or what Lagos did independently or what the private bank did independently. Then we begin to query the processes, the methodology, and the rest of them. So that's the point I'm making. But as it is today, what NBS is doing, they might not be perfect. But I think they've upped their game. They've come a long way. And let's just wait and see the data that will be coming out, because some of this issue, a whole lot of econometric, a lot of statistical modeling goes into churning out data. So nobody, even the professor, cannot just sit in a studio or sit on a program the way I'm doing this morning and just say a data is wrong, a data is right. No, you must first go back. And what were the data? What were the methodologies? How were they processed before you can arrive at that conclusion? So it's a very technical issue. I'm an economist. I know how these things are done. So I can't just sit and say data is correct, it's not correct. I must first go through the processes before I can conclude and arrive at that.
Well, we thank you for your objectivity as always, and that's why I call you the ever-mercurial Seun Oni. We appreciate you for taking our time to review these issues with us.
It's always a privilege. ADBN, thank you for the great job you are doing. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
And you too.
Now, anticipations, expectations are high. Much like Seun Oni said, it's good to be objective. Whilst the NBS is the most credible bureau empowered statutorily to churn out statistics, Nigerians are looking at the Consumer Price Index expected to drop today. Over the years, the NBS has been faulted for not having current frameworks that show the price fluctuations of goods and services